Alright. It's time for me to finally apologize to that guy 3.14. You were right. They buffed Cerydra in the literally last moment possible. And while I didn't want to talk about this girl anymore, most movie series end with a trilogy. So today, we're going to actually have the final talk about the sassy girl that gives me problems with my blood pressure. I'm going to show you the changes and give you a few moments to take them in, before I'm going to give my opinion on them, and finally on Cerydra as a character. So, here they are. Good. So what got changed? Remember how I said that her actual sub-DPS power is locked behind her E6? They took it and finally put it as a hard-nerfed version into her base kit. This means that she now not only actually deals sub-DPS damage, but since that damage is being done in a similar way as Ting Yun's benediction skill, this means that she deals damage even while departed. She can actually support Finon and bring damage to the team. And speaking of departed, they removed the god-awful depart passive and just added 10% respen universally to the target using the double skill. This means that Cerydra can now indeed actually use 100% of her kit. Now, as you can see, I'm not jumping out of my seat, praising Hoyo, and screaming how I can't wait to spend over 16k jades for this character. And the reason for that is that these buffs are good, but they are only good if you look at them through a vacuum without taking into consideration anything that has happened so far. Right now, this is the kit that Cerydra should have had in V0 and got repeated changes for 5 weeks. I believe if this kit was the starting point of the beta, that this character could have genuinely turned out amazing. But because we reached this point now, where we are already getting March 7th and Danhang Drip marketed next week, yeah, it sucks. So let's talk about the sub-DPS power. They messed it up and basically try to 100% make sure that it doesn't accidentally break the game, since they don't have time to test it anymore. Let me explain. Cerydra's new sub-DPS passive scales with 60% of her attack. That's it. As an example, which is a bit unfavorable and unfair for Cerydra since it's an ult, Robin's extra damage during her ult scales with 120% of her attack. But I won't compare Cerydra's damage to Robin's because I don't need to go that far just to prove how bad she is. 4-star Ting Yun, a 1.0 character is all I need. Ting Yun's benediction skill scales with 40% of the ally's attack, not with Ting Yun's. So why don't we take a look at a Finon setup that uses Ting Yun's damage and then a Finon setup that shows us Cerydra's damage. So as we can see here, we have Finon dealing nearly 80k extra damage through Ting Yun. I want you to sit down and just guess how much damage Cerydra will deal. Go right now into the comments and just give a guess. Alright, here we go. Yep, it's 4 digits. Yuan ironically could have released this in 1.0 and it would have been considered mediocre. Now, why is that an issue? Tribi doesn't deal a lot of damage either. Well, you see, Tribi just has one passive. Cerydra now has 2 traces and a passive that are all combining their power of friendship to come together and contribute not even 10k damage to a fucking Finon attack that is in like 7 digits. Here's Cerydra's damage improvement in a Finon team from V4 to V5. And who could have guessed when the main character is Madara, who keeps on throwing nukes at the enemies, and this are the damage numbers we are dealing with. 9k damage just doesn't really do that much, does it? Which is why I'm saying that this should have been the V0 kit. If the scalings got eventually adjusted and Hoyo had more time to look at them, we probably would have gotten an actually good sub-DPS support. But because they don't have time to test it, and due to Chinese laws, they can't change it after her release, they basically decided that it's obviously safer to make her too weak than to accidentally make her break the game. Let's now lastly talk about the respawn before coming to a conclusion. It's now universal. I don't care. Tribi gives 24% permanently. Cerydra's respen is only for the skill that is getting copied. You literally don't even have a good uptime on it. But, you know, it is a win for Anaxa mains, I guess. So to wrap it up, Cerydra's buffs and contributions consist of constant 9k damage, 10% respen only on the copy skill, 72% crit damage only on the copy skill, copying a skill once every 6 turns, or you know, when her charge is full basically, an attack increase of 24% of Cerydra's own attack for the target of her skill. So that's like 1200 attack if you reach 5k on Cerydra as an example. And her, in my opinion, strongest buff of all, flat 20 speed for all allies with basically 100% uptime once the fight starts. Now, let's finally end the Cerydra arc on this channel and talk about her pull value. I'm only going to talk about meta here, so if that's something you don't care about, then these videos quite frankly aren't for you anyways. I'm only going to talk about Anaxa and Phynon because those are the only two relevant characters for her. Hurter doesn't work because the second skill won't have any interpretation stacks and will therefore hit like a wet noodle. And the other skill-based damage dealers have mostly way too superior options, like Archer for example. So let's start with Phynon since he's the main character. If you are a Phynon main, I heavily advise you to not decide on pulling or skipping it. Cerydra is the second half character of 3.5, so you will have time to not only see Dan Hang's kit and performance, but also see if he is free or not. There's no denying that Hoyo could very realistically pull a triple synergy, making Dan Hang solve Phynon's and Cerydra's problems, making the three incredible together. You have more than enough time, and Phynon is already gone, so you already had to decide on how much you wanted to invest into him specifically. Keep in mind that Cerydra's E1 is 36% Death Ignore, which is big. If Terravox gives Death Ignore as well and or triggers Sunday's enhanced E1, then 100% Death Ignore on Phynon might as well be another big power boost that is reachable. If Dan Hang ends up giving a summon to Phynon and that summon counts towards the Cerydra passive, then that would again accelerate her copying the skill, increasing her uptime and therefore her overall value as a character. We are basically reaching very dangerous whale territory, and one side of me hopes that Dan Hang will have that kind of synergy because he's the only one who can save Cerydra at this point, but another side of me obviously does not want this to happen because the last thing we need is to reach an era where we have triple must-have characters on a single team to work properly. Now, let's lastly also talk about Anaxa. Unlike Phynon, Anaxa basically can't really wait, since the only character that you could maybe wait for is Cyrene, and she's way too far away. Now, I'm unfortunately not the biggest Anaxa connoisseur, and only use him as a slave for Madame Hurter, who is a peerless gem. So take everything with caution from now on. Is she good? Yes, she is. Is she must pull? No, she is not. She competes against primarily Robin in an Anaxa team and doesn't even fully beat her. The difference between the two in terms of raw Anaxa performance is pretty close, but keep in mind that Robin is universal and can be used in nearly every team, while Cerydra has 2 teams. Also, if you hard invested into that E1 Robin, it's pretty much over for the little sassy chess girl. I will admit though, playing Anaxa Cerydra Sunday is a lot of fun. Is it so much fun that you want to potentially spend 180 pulls? Honestly, that's for you to decide. I think overall all the V5 changes did was make her now a truly relevant unit for Anaxa. But if I decided to play my Anaxa as a main DPS, I honestly still wouldn't be super crazy about her. So while yes, she got overall buffed, I would actually go as far and say, raw power wise, she's pretty much in the exact same spot she was before these buffs. And that pretty much marks the end of the Cerydra movie trilogy on my channel. I hope you enjoyed the ride so far. and let me know if you would be interested in me covering future characters as well, or if this is something that you don't really care about. Consider subscribing if you haven't already, and I will see you in the next one.